Just give me an aisle seat, please.
Well, I know
Lots
all of
leg
this
room.
sounds really trite in fifth grade social studies class, but democracy does start with a no. And if they put in these machines, you have to say, no, I'd rather you pat me down. I would rather you strip search me.
And buy me a drink first.
And why not? And kiss me afterwards, because the deal is that I would take a strip search over one of these devices, because when that strip search is finished, I know that it's finished. But with these machines, these pictures live forever. And I don't know what happens to them.
Well, you're going to have to make sure that you come back and tell us what we can do or what's coming up with this, because I know people are afraid. And when they're afraid, they want to be protected. And this seems like an easy way. But the last thing I want is Michael Chertoff getting rich over naked pictures of Americans. Yeah. God, am I really saying that out loud?
I have a 3 and 5-year-old. I have 3 and 5-year-old sons. I don't want them having to go through this machine. That's just not right. I mean, that's perverse. And if a couple of bad guys with a round trip ticket and some explosives attached to their testicles can cause us to completely change our way of life yet again, then what are we defending?
Well, obviously they won.
Well, let's fight back.
Well, we will. I'm not afraid to fight. I know most Alaskans aren't.
That's why
Remember what happened to the Japanese? Yeah. Well, they got kicked out.
Yes, they did.
Didn't work out well for them.
No,
I'm Shannyn Moore. This is More Up North, and we're going to be back with our panel in just a couple minutes. Thank you so much. I'm Shannyn Moore. This is More Up North, and I'm so glad that you're joining us, because we have a great panel. And frankly, the topic of oil and gas is a little, it's about enough to make you wish you were just having a root canal. It's easy to glaze over. There's so much BS in the water, so to speak. And you can't figure out who's telling the truth and who's not, and you try to follow the money and you're down a rabbit hole, and God only knows. And if you're like me, you're still kind of upset about that big oil spill in Prince William Sound about 20 years ago, so that sort of jades things. So got together a great panel for us tonight. Representative Harry Crawford is here. He has represented the East Side in District 21 since 2000 and is running for the U.S. House seat this year against Representative Don Young. You may have heard of him. Yes.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad you're here. And Harry, if you ever get a chance to have Harry's gumbo, you have to.
Or my etouffee.
Well, I haven't had that.
Oh, well, gee.
Oh, wait a minute. Excuse me. When are you having it next?
Well, it'll be down in Juneau the next time.
All right, well, I may have to make a trip.
Okay.
All right, so also, oh dear, this is my new hero. I heard her on the radio this week. She had never been on the radio before. She went up with Dan Fagan. Hi, Dan. And basically owned him. So Dan, if you need your bottom back, you'll have to get it from her. Deputy Commissioner for Gasline and Tax, Marcia Davis. Wow, you are, and previous to her appointment in 2007, Marcia served for 7 years as Vice President and General Counsel for Air Aviation. For the prior 9 years, she was Senior Counsel for BP Exploration. Much of it focused on North Slope gas commercialization and state production tax issues. And you were appointed by the former governor, I love saying that out loud, Sarah Palin.
So is.
Well, you know what I just have to say right now? Good on you, Sarah. She's a rock star. And if you can't do it, you got to find somebody who can, and she did. So I'm so glad you're here. Also, Representative Les Guerra. What can I say? No, I'm kidding. He has represented the downtown District 23 since 2002. He's an attorney, he's a writer, he's a fabulous fly fisherman, which I love, and was the Assistant Attorney General during the Exxon Valdez oil spill case. So welcome, all of you. Oh, take a big sigh, because everybody's headed back to Juneau. Oh yes, and this is going to be what's up and coming. The visitations, Sean Parnell put out press releases this week and some statements, and has decided to revisit ACES, the big share. So I was a supporter of ACES, and I think that had the administration at that point not had the backing of the Democrats, it would have never passed. This was coming in after the oil corruption, the Corrupt Bastards Club, the buy your favorite legislator trials were going on. And so there was a real sentiment against oil companies. Can you talk a little bit about that, Representative Crawford, about how it was when ACES first came in? The climate, so to speak. And I don't want to hear about the cupcake parties. I just want to hear about the climate.
What we had before was ELF, and anybody will tell you that ELF was broken. It's the economic limit factor. It wasn't working. What it was a tax on the gross, but it taxed higher at lower prices, and hardly taxed at all at higher prices.
Right.
Really didn't recover.
ELF was basically the stature, small, pointed
Yeah.
ears, not quite working for us. Right. So then we
That's
had
a great analogy.
and then and it was what it said. And then we had PPT, which was Frank Murkowski's little Brokeback Mountain spoon moment with
Yeah.
the oil companies.
And I just believe that PPT was this huge giveaway, and that it was going to get worse year by year by year as expenses would grow, and the accounting errors are the account what do they call that?
Lease expenditures?
No, there was a derogatory term for that type of accounting. Enron accounting.
Right. Right. No, it was definitely. You could basically write off hammers in Nigeria.
Right. That we were really very concerned about what PPT was going to do, and it just wasn't getting a fair share for Alaska. And what we ended up with after several months of debate was ACES. I actually ended up voting against ACES, but not because I thought it was too high. I just thought it was taxing it in the wrong manner. But it's done Alaska proud, and I think that it was what we needed to do at the time.
So if you knew then what you knew now, you would vote for it?
I still would have.
He still would have voted against it. You know why? Because
I believe in the tax on the
Carrie,
gross.
I swear, if you were one of the disciples, you would have been Peter. I know I've said it before, but just like whip out the sword, chop off the ear, and ask questions later. Like, I'm not doing it. I love it. So, Deputy Commissioner, Marcia, you came in 2007. Did you come in right at the beginning of this ACES project? Was this
Yes.
Is this partly your dream child?
I can't claim credit for it, but
She
I
never
did
claims
come in.
credit for anything.
I don't. But I came in January of, what year was that?
2007.
Thank you. Time flies when you're doing this job. And the first thing I hit was actually AGIA, the Alaska Gas Inducement Act work. So worked very hard on that with Commissioner Galvin. And then we just barely got through getting that passed when the special session got called for ACES. And so boom, that hit us.
The special
Yeah,
session.
the OSO special session. And so because PPT was already set up as a net tax, what devolved to me and my econ research group and tax division group was we were asked by Governor Palin to go back, because she had been a proponent of the gross tax, and said, you tell me your independent view on what you think is the best thing. And so we brought in experts from around the world. We brought in legislative people. We brought in, other agency people. We just formed sort of a think tank, and we basically sat down and analyzed what the world would be like with the information we knew under a gross versus a net, and rolled it out to the future, and looked at where we were positioned globally. And the only thing that really made sense to us was a net tax. And then the question became, how do we protect the state in the context of a net tax for the very reasons that Representative Crawford was talking about? How do you ensure that
Right.
appropriate accounting, good auditing, and all these other things happen? And so we told the governor at the time, we really think it needs to be a net tax. It took a while, and she ultimately accepted that.
So how much of your work at BP came into that? Those sort of decisions, because it must be hard. I mean, you worked there for 9 years, and then you're working on and basically the job of the
side.
oil companies is to, I don't know, bend over Alaska, we're driving, which has been how they've
Well,
operated here.
it-
And you're working for them, and now you're like, oh wait, we're going to need some safety measures here, and we're going to do, and did that help you, or was
It helped me a lot from the standpoint that, I'd worked within BP. I understood how oil companies make decisions, how their various departments and staff carry out sort of their obligations and what they're supposed to do. So I understood how information flowed. I understood what the drivers were, how they related with their partners, how they related to their corporate center, and knowing those issues and also how they're pulled around the world for investment dollars. That understanding, I think, gave me a reality base for how to approach the net tax structure.
Right, and still be realistic.
Yeah, and I had 8 or 9 years separation from it working with air aviation, so my palate had been cleansed, so to speak, and could approach it with a fresh eye.
Right.
And I think it helped a lot.
All right. Well, can you just make me a promise not to quit halfway through this? Because I actually am really glad you're there.
Thank you.
I am, and I don't know how much we'll agree on how this policy ends up, but you know, I think that it's really great when you have people that have a handle on it, and right now we have to have that. This is, Les, maybe you can